Sensational Saturday. Welcome once again to another exciting edition of the D Word. This is your host, Furley Almonte. Joining us shortly will be also our co host, Carolina Denhard. She's a family law, divorce law, and also international law attorney. But today is going to be so different from everything else that we have done so far through the divorce dynasty because today we're going to have a super dynamic and gorgeous lady joining us who is actually the vice president of Bruce Trano Plumbing and Heating, Bruce Trano and Sons, plumbing and heating company. And she's going to share with us how different the world is right now. Typically, when we think of plumbing and heating, it becomes like a man's world, and we feel almost like dependent on men to help us make decisions when it comes to those breakdowns that we have at home, but not anymore. So, Stephanie, welcome to the deep.
Thank you.
You're looking good, girl. Look at that. You look stunning.
Thank you. So do you, as always.
Thank you so very much, Stephanie. Before you got into the plumbing business, tell us what were you doing before, and how did you get into the plumbing business?
So basically, during high school, I did an admin position at Shearing, just to get some administrative, background. Honestly, I wanted to be a nurse, believe it or not. I wanted to be a trauma nurse. I was an EMT, and when I was 16 years old, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a nurse. So I got into Children's Specialized Hospital as an admin in their facilities management department. And I thought, you know what, I'll get my way in, they'll pay for nursing school, and then I'll work with the kids there. From there, I ended up going to the municipality, and I became a technical assistant in the construction office, which brought me into the fire field, a fire official. I went to Rutgers. I got certified as a land use officer and a zoning officer. So I dealt with permits all day long, building, learned how to read plans, that kind of stuff. In the meantime, I had already met my current husband. He was a plumber in the town. So I started learning all the different trades in town, went through school with him, and then did billing and stuff for the company. And then we eventually took it all over when his dad retired.
You said you went to school with him on doing what?
No, I went to school for Rutgers. He went to school to do
Okay.
his plumbing license when he got licensed.
Oh my goodness. So you got into the plumbing business because of marriage.
Yes.
That's wonderful. So how was your life different before you actually married a plumber and your life right now?
The funny thing is, when we were young, when we were together, we were 18 years old. So we were right out of high school, starting our lives. And I remember when we went to buy our first house, from working in the town, I was like, oh, is there an oil tank? Is there this? Is there that? And I remember him looking at me and going, why does it matter? Why do we need to know if there's an oil tank? And I said, well, hun, so-and-so just had $60,000 in remediation because they didn't know the tank was there and it leaked. We need to know if it was there. So I did all this research, but that was knowledge that I got from working with the township, which a lot of people don't know. So certain things you're looking at when you're buying a new house or renovating, things like that, there's a lot of basics that you need to know. And unfortunately, not everybody knows that.
Stephanie, you're getting out of frame. Can you move to your right a little bit?
How's that?
Yes, yeah, pretty soon you're going to be lost. So wow, actually what strikes me right now is that you are not only knowledgeable obviously with the services that you provide that we will be discussing shortly, you're also very knowledgeable about like the regulations that information that homeowners need to know to be able to make intelligent decisions when there comes the time that they have to purchase a home. And so, okay, here you are now when somebody has a home. And first of all, let's talk about the business. What services does Bruce Trano and Sons provide that's different from everything else out there? How are you different?
How am I different? So we offer basic plumbing and heating. We do hydronic heating, which is hot water and steam. We don't do the heating and cooling that comes out of the vents. We don't do ventilation yet, but we have companies that we work with that we would send out for that. What makes me different? We're a family business. We've been in, it was his dad's business for 30, 40 years. We took over. His brother works with us. All the guys in my crew are family. We treat our customers like family. Um, so I do when I answer the calls, I help people. Sometimes I can work them through their problem. We don't even have to come out.
Wow.
Sometimes it could be something simple. And I feel like, you know what, save the service call. Why? My garbage disposal is jammed. Well, try hitting the button, try doing this. Sometimes they'll fix it. We don't even have to go. Um, so I love my customers. I just want to help them. It's not about just selling a job or, making the money off the job. It's more, these guys, a lot of our customers have been in our family for a long time. They've watched us grow up. They've watched my kids grow up. So it's just a personal relationship that I have with everything. It's not such a corporate environment.
Yeah. So how, say for example, if somebody's plumbing breaks down and there's very highly advertised companies out there, why should they reach out to you? Say for example, they are in Union County. You're in Union County or
We're in
Mon-.
Union County.
Yeah. And so do you also service different areas, different counties in New Jersey?
We do. We do the surrounding counties. I don't like to go too far out of our service area, more than half an hour, 40 minutes away. The reason is I don't feel it's fair to charge extra for my guys to go further. We have customers that move out of town and they're like, well, we really want you to come. And I'm hesitant to charge a little bit more. And some of them are like, do it, because you're still paying for travel time, you're still paying that employee, but I keep my rates at a certain amount. So I don't want to charge more to go out there. Um, the bigger companies, a lot of those guys work on commission. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but a lot of the larger companies, their guys are commission based. So the more they can sell in a service, the more money they're going to make. Um, or they're basing it on sales. My philosophy, our philosophy has always been see what the problem is. Like if you call me and you say my faucet's leaking, it's leaking at the handle. Well, it's not that old. Let's try to fix it first. If we can't fix it, then we'll replace it. Um, we always take that approach. Let's do the minimal possible first. And then if it escalates, where some people will come in and say, oh, no, you need everything brand new and it's going to be $600-700. And people are like, okay, let's do it. But sometimes it's that little fix that you can do that you don't have to spend a lot of money on.
Yeah. The fact that you've been in business for, 34, 40 years, you said, like that speaks for a lot, because obviously that means that you're in business because your integrity, your work ethics and the quality of your service basically gone through the test of the years. And I bet you have a lot of loyal customers. That's why even if they moved out of town, they still want you, because
Right.
they know that they're going to get quality service and they don't get ripped off. Actually, I would love to talk about getting ripped off, because women, most especially, say for example, if they find themselves single, and women, we do not know much by, I don't know why are we wired that way, that it's either we are not interested in it, or is it like by culture that we depend on men to do the plumbing work. So what would you tell women, say for example, if they're having plumbing issues, so that they don't get ripped off?
Um, I would definitely listen to the contractor, listen to what they're saying. Um, you can always get second opinions, especially if it's a big thing. The one thing I usually tell women, especially if it's a leak, make sure you know where your main shutoff valve is. Make sure that it's operational so that if there is a flood, there is an emergency, you know where to go, you know how to turn it off. Because that'll save a lot in restoration fees, especially if it's not raining through your ceiling and you can get it stopped in 10 minutes. Then you have 10 minutes worth of damage and a little residual than, it leaking for 3 hours until you figure it out. So sometimes I feel like I'm walking women off, from jumping off the edge. You got to calm down, just relax. We'll do this. I'll walk you through it. FaceTime has made things very easy, because I've had customers call and we can, FaceTime, and I could say, shut this off, or this is, and try to troubleshoot it. Um, it's hard to say. Some of the bigger, larger companies, they are great guys and they have great technicians. But you hear so many stories of, and there was one that got sued for doing overwork, and he almost lost his license, and he was a very, very large company. But they were going in, and let's say it was the boiler and it was just a circulator. And you're talking a couple $100 for material, a couple hundred labor, less than $1,000 worth of work. And they're selling these people $10,000, $15,000 because they're scaring them into just replace everything.
Mm.
And it doesn't look good. And, especially when we do large jobs like that, I always tell people to get extra quotes. And I remember a customer saying to me, um, you're putting in the same product as Joe the plumber. How come Joe the plumber is $15,000 and you're only eight? And I said to him, because we have our profit off that. We've paid the guys. We're comfortable. I don't need to charge you three times as much for the same product if I can do it less. And our integrity, our value in that is that you're going to go and tell three, four more people. So some of the larger companies, they don't care if they overcharge you at first because it's one and done. They don't care if you ever call them back. Where I rather do the right thing and then you'll use me 10 more times. So eventually I'd make the same amount of money, but I have you as a lifetime customer rather than you feeling like you were screwed, you were taking advantage of, and now, you're never going to call again.
Wow. Actually, that's really very powerful repeat business. And oftentimes when you have a family-owned business, that is what happens. You find them to be dependable. Somebody that like a company that is trustworthy. I actually love what you were saying about like you are able to FaceTime now because thank God for technology as well.
Yes.
If you are able to even teach them without, because it's very petrifying for us women, right? As a matter of fact, when you were just saying about the valve, like the water valve, I said like, do I know where mine is? Because it's something that we really don't think about, like
Right.
when you buy a new home, or even if you're renting, if you have the control of the valve. Even do apartments have a central control as well?
Some apartments do, they'll have a main shutoff in the unit. Some of them are down below. They try to, we have one condo complex that we're trying to get isolation valves in every apartment because every time we have to do a water heater or anything main, we're shutting down numerous apartments.
Right.
So it's not good for functionality, but it depends on the age of the units. Um, what we also started offering in the last couple of years is, because we never really did the coupons. We don't do big ads in the paper. We still do the yellow pages for the little ad, because our business has thrived just on repeat business and referrals, that I never really needed to have a big media presence in the papers and Facebook, things like that. But what we did offer, we did a coupon at one point, and I'm still offering it, is learn about your home. People come in, especially with steam systems. So a steam heating system needs a lot of maintenance. You have to add water. You have to keep up on it. You have to, because if it runs out of water, it could crack, and then you need a whole new system. So people coming in from the city that are used to forced air, or they're used to just having a superintendent in their building, they don't know things about the new homes. So what we started doing was offering, and we're going to promote it more, but offering kind of like a learn about your home. So if they want estimates for new faucets or this or that, but even for one of my guys, just to walk around the house with them and say, this is where your main is, this is where that is, especially if it's a steam system here, here's what you have to do on a weekly basis. If it gets to that point, then call us. And it's just building that relationship. And I also have a network of other contractors I work with. So I'll get a new customer and they'll say, oh, well, who do you use for electrician, or who do you use for, we're not from the area. Who do we use? And I only recommend people that I would work with in my own home.
That's really, really wonderful. The fact that you're even like you have a trusted network, so to speak, of people that are in the construction business. So like it gives people peace of mind knowing that people that they have worked with in the past, such as Bruce Trano and Sons, and then people who you also respect and also trust, is very important, that when you make that kind of recommendation. I love the fact that you are empowering people now, not just women, but empowering people to know more about our homes. As a matter of fact, as I listened to you, I was saying, like, those people who are renovating, say for example, they just need to change the fixture in the in the bathroom, for instance. Is it important to inspect the older plumbing and replace it, or is it something that you, like a contractor, can very easily connect a new faucet, a new fixture, or whatever it may be?
It all depends. Usually you can change out a fixture just by what's in right in front of you. When people do renovations and you take the walls out and you go down to the studs, we always say, look at the plumbing in the ceiling, look at around it once you open it. Because we always laugh at Murphy's Law. What's going to happen? You take the ceiling down, you say, oh, that pipe looks fine, I'm not going to touch it. 6 months later, now it's leaking. And you had that opportunity. So certain things like that we may push to say, everything's open. So fix what you can access now so you're not breaking into your brand new bathroom. But normally just a fix, a toilet swap, a sink faucet, those are pretty easy. We can change the plumbing in below it if we need to. But you try not to get too invasive
Okay.
unless you really need to.
Us women, like, okay, here we are, we're single, right? And then something, you started to see leaking faucet, and like suddenly a pipe burst in the middle of winter because it's freezing cold right now, right? And now we started to freak out. Okay, so what do you do if it's in the middle of the night, it's 2 a.m.? How can you help us?
Okay, are we talking freezing or are we talking raining in your home and water? Um,
Both.
So normally in a perfect world, if everything's plumbed correctly, under your sinks there's valves. Now, depending on the age, they could be easy to turn off. They may be really hard and you can't turn them off. So usually you're going to try to turn it off right at that fixture, right where the water feeds at. So if it's under the kitchen sink, if it's under the bathroom sink, if it's the toilet, you find the valve that's in that location right near that fixture and turn it off. Worst case scenario is when you go to the basement and you hit the main water supply. So if you can't get something off, which those you have to concern too, because obviously if something hasn't been touched in 20 years, you don't know if it's going to move. You don't know if it's going to break in your hand. So it's one of those things you really should keep on and look at and keep up to date. Because the last thing you want is that main valve in your house failing, and then you're calling the water company, but now there's water coming in because you can't get it off. So we're able to shut it off at the street. We have a good relationship with the water company here in our area.
Mhm.
Um, Not everybody has that. A lot of water companies, they don't want you touching their stuff. So you can't do it. You have to wait for them. Um, so we do tell people if you're doing major work to check that first. And then you don't even know if the box at the street is full of mud. So it may not even be operable outside. So it's always one thing, especially with the main valves, to really look at when you're buying a home so that if you have that emergency, you can turn it off. Know where the emergency shutoff is on your heating system. God forbid you smelled smoke or something happened. There's always a red box that says emergency shutoff. Know to shut that off. Those are, two big things that you can do in an emergency, before getting help, before somebody can get out there. And of course, we walk everybody through this. Um, in older homes, it's funny, they'll have that red switch at the top of the stairs. People forget they hit it like a light switch, and then they call me and they say, we have no heat. So I'm like, go find the red box. Maybe make sure one of the kids didn't turn it off. And sometimes that's what it is. They turn it back on. They're like, okay, thank you. We'll call you next time.
Actually, I remember because in one of my homes before, I remember exactly what you're talking about, and actually I had to put a cover to it because it's very easy to make a mistake and turn it on and off,
Right.
inadvertently. Now, say for example, on emergency calls, are you able to help people in the middle of the night?
I don't have 24-hour, the guys on 24 hours. I tend to keep the phone. I will answer it through the night. Sometimes I can get them out of that urgent situation and we can wait till the morning, such as a water heater. But I will answer the phone through the night. There's times that I sleep through it. Um, but for the most part, I will answer the phone, walk you through if we can. If I can't do it, I'll recommend somebody else. But we try to take all the calls. You get silly ones like I had a man once, he was 83 years old, and he said, the toilet's running. And I said, okay, well, is it overflowing? And he's like, no, can you come over? And I said, well, it's 3 in the morning. Is there water on the floor? He's like, no. I said, okay, I think you'll be okay till the morning. He's like, okay, I'll call you when I get up. But he was just happy. He was happy to know
That,
that I answered the phone. He was able to go back to sleep, and we did take care of it in the morning for him.
yeah, it's wonderful also that we talked about you being able to FaceTime people, because when it comes to like 2 3 a.m. and you don't want to wake up the whole neighborhood over this, and at least you'll be able to calm them down. And
Right.
what's also very very important is like you are also the office manager, right? Like the office manager and the vice president, and so you take on, I love that you're very hands on in terms of educating your customers as well, and that's one of the reasons why they get that feeling of trust and confidence in you. Now, in this it's winter right now. Actually, it's single digits and it's freezing. And what should we be doing? What tips would can you give us?
So the biggest thing in the winter is to make sure that you turn off your hose, your outside hoses, and you disconnect the hose. So we always say shut the inside valve off, drain the water out, and leave it open. Those tend to freeze the most, obviously, because it's on that outside wall. It's in between hot and cold. Um, as far as fixtures, anything that's on an outside wall can freeze. So if you have poor insulation in your home, we always say keep the heat at a reasonable temperature. Don't go too low with it. Some people try to conserve the heat and not do it. Leave cabinet doors open. If you have that one fixture that tends to freeze every year, like your kitchen. If your kitchen's on an outside wall and that you tend to freeze it, you want to leave the cabinet doors open, let the air get under there, and let everything trickle. Let the water trickle, because running water is not going to freeze, although it can. But with these freezing temperatures, we say if it's on an outside wall and it tends to freeze, let it trickle. So leave it just with the steady stream. You can't always do that. Like I have one bathroom that's on an outside wall. No matter what we do, it's insulated, but it has frozen. But I can't leave the bathtub running consistently. So the cold will be, and the hot water freezes before cold. So I can get the cold to work, but then I can't get the hot because it'll freeze on that side.
Mm.
Um,
That's
but
it. For those places, is it, well, I don't know, that's going to be a safety concern. Now, if you could put a little heater to make sure that the pipes don't freeze.
You can, and then usually what happens too is we have equipment that can unfreeze pipes. But you have to be able to touch it perfectly. You have to touch right on that pipe. So if it's something in the wall, we can't always get to them. So a lot of those calls, when we take them, I walk it through, bump the heat up, open your cabinet doors, get a hair dryer, put a space heater in. A space heater only if you're going to watch it. If you're going to sit in there and you're not leaving to go shopping for 6 hours, I wouldn't recommend that. God forbid. Um, but turn the heat up. If it's the kitchen, put the stove on, bake a cake. Do something to warm up the house and see if it trickles on its own, and then give us a call. Sometimes, it'll come back, you'll be fine, nothing breaks. Sometimes they do split, from the pipe, the water freezing in the pipe, it'll split the pipe. So usually for those kind of calls, we just walk them through it. We check on them every couple hours. We check in with them. And then if it becomes an emergency, we send somebody out. Um, but sometimes we can't do it. So I'd rather them, work them through the steps that they can take to do it on their own. And then, of course, if they still need us, we can, head out there.
What is your recommendation for, compared to like, we have a well woman visits, for instance, like when it comes to plumbing in our homes, how often you would have a plumber come over and check the health of our pipes?
I mean, you could do it yearly. Um, I would say, if anything, do it when you do your heating system, do it when you do your cooling system. If you have the cooling person does plumbing too, let them take a walk around and look. Um, but the heating systems, I always recommend do it ahead of time. Do it in the fall, for winter. Do it or in the spring, for cooling, because what happens? Everybody waits, and then all of a sudden it's 70 and it's beautiful, and then it's 110 and everybody needs air conditioning and nothing's working. Or, the opposite. We're nice and warm, and then all of a sudden it's freezing outside and nobody's heat's coming on. Certain systems, they don't need yearly maintenance. They only need every couple years. Steam systems every year. You have to make sure that you do them every year, because they get dirty and things clog up and then they don't start, they don't work.
Yeah. So be proactive when it comes to those things. Don't wait for a disaster to happen before you act on it.
Right.
Now, what's the new technology now? What's changing in the plumbing world in terms of new construction? Or if I have an older home, when do I decide to upgrade to a new technology?
I mean, it all depends. They've come out with, and I'm not too much on my guys are much better at that. Um, Copper's gotten expensive, so a lot of contractors have switched to the PEX piping, which is more of a plastic. It's solid. There's less connections when you're running it, and they say that it also tolerates the heat and the cool better, so it's not going to expand and contract like copper will. So you have less breakage. But with anything, the some of the clips we're seeing that we used years ago, they've gotten better over the years. So some of them will start leaking, because the technology does change, the fittings change. They'll notice that one thing's not working, so they change it. Um, but a lot of, you're getting away from cast iron, you're going to plastic and ABS piping. It's more durable. After time, the metal piping breaks down. So it's really just looking around your house and seeing, are you seeing green erosion? Just because you see green on copper doesn't mean it's leaking. And it might not be that bad. But just kind of generally look around and see, if you see a puddle, just watch it.
Yeah, you know what? This is going to be very funny because a lot of toilets clog. When is it time to actually call a plumber?
I don't like plunging my own toilet. And I have boys that constantly, um, I mean, that's the one trick that you can learn on your own. So you don't need the plumber. But we're always afraid to do it. And I laugh that there's like a special knack in it to make sure you get the suction just right. And I've learned over time, I've done stuff in my own house. I tend not to because, then that stopped him from fixing things. He would say, well, you could do it yourself. So don't ever tell them if you can actually fix it. Know that you could fix it.
But it's
Because then,
very
like everything, we do everything on our own.
right. But I'm just saying, like, because people like, oh my, the moment it clogs, like you call a plumber, but like, sometimes you can actually just use a plunger,
Plunger.
be able to unclog it. But like, but you don't like to deal with mess, and that's why we call somebody.
Right.
So anyway, first of all, I'd like for you to talk about, like, when you said that you do have trainings on certain plumbing issues. When do you do that? How can people plug into that educational
Well,
piece?
we don't have a training. We did a special where, we put a flyer out there and we said, as you buy a new home, we can come out and kind of look at stuff, give you an assessment, things that maybe you want to change. So that's really just calling my office, scheduling an appointment for that. I think, with Carolina and Divorce Dynasty, I think this maybe will turn into something where we can start doing some kind of classes for women.
Yes.
Um, I'd like to be interested in that. I mean, we're talking about the ancillary services right now and having a network of different people that we could call different areas, because it's not just one trade that we're
Yeah.
looking for.
Uh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful that if it amounts to something more than what we're talking about right now, because just in case you haven't heard of the Divorce Dynasty, the Divorce Dynasty is actually a group of vetted professionals committed to helping you with the services that you need as you go through life transitions such as divorce, death, disability, or you just decide that you want to be able to move to a different place. So we have attorneys, realtors, like, look at Stephanie. She provides plumbing and heating services. I provide life insurance, and we also have insurance for property and casualty. And also we have lawyers in many different fields as well, private investigators, and even matchmakers. So my gosh, like, when you are in a group of vetted professionals who are committed to delivering excellent service all the time, we'd love to be able to partner with you as well, so that all of us have obviously have gone through scrutiny in finding that these are the right people to provide you with the need with your needs, and at the same time that also work with the best work ethics and integrity. So Stephanie, if we are in, in the close towns of Orange, Union County, you said, and neighboring counties, how can we reach to you? How can we reach in case of emergency or any type of construction that involves plumbing and heating?
So we do have a Facebook page, but our phone number is 908-654-3685. We always have the machine on. There's an emergency, you can hit zero, it'll go straight to my cell phone. You can find us on my website is very long. It's mountainsideplumbingandheating.com. But usually the main number is the best one to reach us on.
Okay, let's just repeat it and do it a little slower.
It's 908-654-3685.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if they have just concern, if they're thinking of also remodeling, if they have a concern, like sometimes we ignore like small leaks in the faucet, and then we wait until something worse happens. If nothing is really unimportant, correct? Like when all of this big problems start with a small leaky faucet, or even your water heater, you don't want to wait till it floods or anything like that. So, and also take care of the health of your heating system. You were saying about the,
Mhm.
is it the steam that needs a yearly checkup?
Yearly.
The steam, if you have steam heating, you want to make sure that it's not clogged. So because it's like like, explain a little bit, it works on air, right? So it need you.
So the steam is no, it's steam. So it's water that turns into steam and then goes through all the pipes, but it can release, the valves leak where you lose water in the system. Um, it
Because
has to maintain a certain
in my
temperature.
old house, I have to, once in a while the plumber comes in, just releases air, something like that.
Mhm.
Is that the same
Right.
thing?
That's more probably in the hot water. On a hot water, it's a closed loop system, but it does get air in there. There's air vents. Um, one day maybe I'll get Craig on here so he can explain more on
Yeah.
how they actually work. Um, but doing the yearly maintenance, when the water goes out to the radiators and then comes back, it'll bring dirt back, it'll bring sediment back, and that's what usually clogs things up. So there's cleaners that we can put in there. It's draining, steam systems, you have to drain them regularly to get that sediment out that's going back and forth.
Mm. Yeah. One last question.
Mhm.
For people whose skin are getting dry and all that, and I always hear about hard water, is that the soft water softener, is that something that you also provide service on?
We don't do much with them. We will install them if you want, but I usually recommend Jason or Pelican or other companies that are out there. Portasoft, they're really the specialties in it. They know exactly how to fix them, how to make sure they're running properly. Hard water is corrosive on faucets and fixtures. That's why you get that scaly green, you know, on the end of the sinks. It does break down. It does make the cartridges go bad. Myself, I don't have a water softener. I never like the soft water. But technology is also changing that you don't need the salt softeners anymore. There's whole house filtration systems that you can put in that are much less maintenance. So it's ever evolving on, what you can purchase. So we have a company out in Pennsylvania that we work with that I can test the water. You can give me, just a Poland Spring bottle. We can test the water. I give them the samples, or sometimes if it's more detailed, we'll send it out to them and they can build a system for you. We can certainly install it, and then, they'll give you the maintenance on it as far as when to change filters on it, things like that.
Well, Stephanie, I am very, very impressed of how much you know about all of this plumbing, because I'm sure there's a lot of ladies out there, or even men, who do not know half of the things that you have shared with us. And so, if you have any plumbing or heating issues at all, and you are close to Union County or the neighboring counties, will definitely recommend Stephanie to us, Trano's company. Actually, she's the vice president and office manager of Bruce Trano and Sons Plumbing and Heating. In Well, how is Mountainside related? Is that the same company? Is that just the, how is
So
Mountainside?
we were always out of Mountainside. The company was based in Mountainside. Right now, we moved to Springfield. We got a larger office, but literally the building next door is Mountainside. So we tried to stay in Mountainside. It just didn't work with the market.
Okay.
Um, but we and it's his father started the company in Mountainside. He went to Mountainside schools, his brother, his sisters. So it's funny, customers will call me, oh, I was his first grade teacher, or I was so and so's, we went to high school together. So everybody stayed very close.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for clarifying that, because I said I think their website, she said something about Mountainside, and now but this is actually Bruce Trano.
So
You're right.
the story with Mountainside Plumbing was there was a gentleman that had Mountainside Plumbing. And he had since passed away. My father-in-law always wanted that name.
Mm.
So the gentleman that owned the name, his kids then take over his company. So when he retired, we were able to grab the name. So we created Mountainside Plumbing as our LLC.
Oh
But
my,
Bruce Trano is the name that everybody knows. Everybody knew my father-in-law, still knows my father-in-law. So, obviously it's his legacy. We had to keep, we wanted to keep his name. That is the name.
yeah. Thank you for clarifying that, because I love all the backstories to these businesses, and that is the whole beauty of being serviced by people that own family-owned businesses, because you get like very personalized service, and obviously you get referrals from people that you have serviced before, because they have learned that you provide the most impeccable service there is. So, Stephanie,
Thank you.
thank you so very much for sharing all this business wisdom, and also at the same time all of these practical tips on plumbing and heating. I could not be more grateful, and I'm sure everyone who's listening in would actually be super thrilled, and would are looking forward to also, whatever it is that you're doing, maybe you can do a little tidbit of like a Facebook live. It's like, hey, listen, this is where your water valve is,
We could.
you're actually right, like it would
We
be,
should.
it's the simplest thing. Hey, listen, this could actually save your house from getting flooded, blah, 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 right? And here, and tune in, and then like we'll all do Facebook Live. That would be a very fun
We
event,
should do that. Yes, definitely.
right? All right. Only Stephanie China would think about something like that, right? All
We're gonna
right.
have classes. We're gonna start classes. This is gonna be very good.
Yeah, girl power. Woo-hoo. Now we can impress we can impress our friends by saying like, do you know where your water valve is? Right. And then well, anyway, I'm very very thrilled to learn something new. Now I'm going to actually go to my water heater and say like, okay, where's the valve here, because now you got me thinking. So
Yes.
anyway, I hope everyone actually has learned something. I hope you all feel warm and safe in your home and wherever you may be. Stephanie, thank you so very much for being a part of this show, and on behalf of the Divorce Dynasty and the D Word and Carolina Denhard, this is Furley Almonte. Until next time, stay well, stay warm, and stay safe. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.